All right, so back again. It's currently Monday, Labor Day, and it's 78 degrees right now, heading for a high of 82. We're finally, I believe, past the 98 to 100 degree weather. And as you can see, I did do some rearranging and some cleaning, and I did actually get rid of a couple of things. And got the tires put back there where we can get the old Bolens out a lot easier. So let me get this door open, get the clipper out of the way, drag this thing out, and we can start looking at it again. All right, well, in looking at this, I've already seen three things. Number one, carburetor is loose on this gasket. Number two, this doesn't tighten down anymore, so that is loose. Number three, right here on top of the starter solenoid, I get in here, this wire is actually touching the grounded metal case. So those are a few things we need to address. Carburetor needs to come off to check the valve adjustment anyway, and it may just need some washers right here. I don't know. I'll find out. So there, if it'll show up, there is our information on this old Wisconsin. In looks, just in physical appearance, it looks pretty close to the other one in our video that was mounted on the old log splitter. So here is that engine. So physically, it appears the same, but it is a smaller engine, I would say, just judging by actual physical size. This is a pretty sweet one because it has a gear reduction box on it. So hang on to this one for another project too. So I was not able to find specific for this engine valve clearance adjustment, but there are some old forums like Smokestack and others that the posts are over a decade old from the old timers, and one guy was pretty adamant. He said almost every Wisconsin engine uses 8 thousandths on the intake and 16 thousandths on the exhaust. So I thought, okay, that's a good number just to check, and that does sound right from what I've known in the past. So I get out my feeler gauges, and I've got 8 and 16. So 8 would go right here. Okay. Well, it goes, but it's just a little sloppy. Okay. And then I go to check this one, the exhaust valve. And you see that? Instead of 16 thousandths, we have about 3/8 of an inch. So, I think that valve is stuck open. I'll have to look into that. There she goes. Now we got an acting valve. All right, let's see what it checks now. Should be 16. I have a feeling it's going to be a little wide. Actually, it seems a little tight. I can't get a 16 in there. So, 10 is tight. Interwebs says 8 and 16. Okay, there's 8. Let's try the one in between. That should be 9. There it is. Okay, so 9 goes, but I can feel drag on it. So this one's set at 9, that one's set at 12. That, from what I understand, that should be close enough to run. Now, I'm hoping before, when it wouldn't stay running, maybe it was partially the loose carburetor and that sticky valve. But there's always the chance that valve stuck while it was sitting in here the last few years. So we're gonna have to make a new gasket, put this carburetor back on, and then we'll have to give her a try. Well, I used the phone a friend option, and my good buddy Ron has a mower repair business, and he's worked on engines for years, and he does more current stuff now, but he's had the old Sears, the old, anything with old Kohlers and old Wisconsins, he's worked on for years. Plus, just a few miles down the road from him is a guy that's done it for years and learned the business from his dad, who did it for years and years prior to that. So we have a little library of knowledge between all of us, and so we are kind of in agreement that the intake valve was probably set at 8 originally. The exhaust valve was set at 16 originally. Because the intake valves don't wear as bad as the exhaust valves, when my friend Tom, the tool and die maker, ground the valves, he did not have to take very much off the intake valve, but he did have to take some off the exhaust valve. which lets them move down in the seat. And that is why the exhaust valve is now only checking about 12 thousandths clearance. And the intake valve is checking a 9 because probably Tom dressed up the end of that valve stem. Now, why he didn't, it appears, he didn't dress up the exhaust valve stem, I don't know. We do both agree that it probably should run with only 12 thousandths clearance, but that's something to be seen. So now that it is freed up, I'm going to go ahead and make that gasket. We're going to get it put back on, get the carburetor put back on, pour some gas in that carburetor. We need to hook a battery to it because it does have coil ignition, and see if we can get this thing to fire.
That's the way you're going to be. We'll just change our MO.
Your washer, your gasket. That's ready to go. Now I think we need to add to the carburetor gasket just in case it is the bolts bottoming out. And you know, it's always good when your snack helps you with your vintage engine habit. I forgot to clean that gasket. Well, battery died. Been having problems recently with the battery not charging up all the way and it running down really fast. So got the valve lifter cover put back on, installed, got the carburetor put back on. I found it's like a ball, a hardened ball with a hole down the middle, some kind of pivoting linkage. So that made a good spacer for that. The air filter is now good and tight. I pulled that wire up off there just in case it was draining some voltage. I installed a battery. This isn't the greatest battery, but the starter is not hooked up, so we're really only going to use the battery to power the coil for the spark. And so we need to see if we have spark right now. I've already put oil down in the cylinder to let the rings start soaking and maybe build up some compression until we can get it fired up, hopefully. And as it warms up, the rings should, even if they are even stuck, they should warm up, everything expands, and they should open up a little bit. So let's check for spark and see. And the battery's trying to die on me again. So let's check for spark, see if you can see any. Without the starter generator, we got to do the old pull it through method. So turn the key on. That kind of helps. And I can't see from where I'm at. Let's see if I can do it before the battery dies again. We do have spark. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. So we do have spark. That is good. Now I'm going to put some gas in the carburetor and we'll see if she'll fire up. Well, we already have a leak on the gas tank, so that's something that'll have to be addressed. So this is full open. That is choke. Let this hood out of the way. Well, while I was not recording, we got to hear some 3-round burst automatic gunfire off in that direction. Not unusual here in the heartland, you know. Check here in a minute and see if we are getting any fuel. Oh, I see some smoke. Let's open it up. Come on, baby. It would be awesome to get you running again after all these years. This is why last time I used an electric motor to spin it over. We got a pretty good leak over here on the gas tank shutoff valve. So let's check and see. Let's check and see if we've got any fuel in the bowl. Might have a problem with the float valve, or we might just have crud. I have crud in the carburetor. I'm not seeing any liquid on the threads yet, so I think we're not getting any fuel. Nope, we are dry as a bone. All right, so so we have a fuel issue, not getting any. Well, I'll leave that out for a minute. This is a gravity flow system, so we should have plenty of fuel to be able to feed over there. Alright, well, float might be stuck. As I tap that, I see dust coming out of that hole where I just removed the needle valve, so I guess we're going to take the carburetor apart. Shut the gas off. That is the wrong socket. So what was happening, I shot some oil in the carburetor, or in the cylinder through the spark plug hole. I dumped a little bit of gas in there too. So that was the little bit of smoke you were seeing coming out. Because we have no gasoline in the carburetor, it appears. Let's go ahead and take this off here. Just so we don't have that added weight on there to deal with. Plus we can see inside the throat of the carburetor that way. So once again, we got to tilt this to the right angle to get the throttle linkage off. Come on, babe. There we go. We have none. So I need to get this hose off of here. And she is stuck good. Let me go get my hose pliers. Break it loose. That rubber sticks to your fittings and you will not get it loose. You will not get that hose off there unless you break it loose. And even then, sometimes it does not want to come off. These just do not go small enough. I don't want to tear that hose up if I can because I got to run it through that blower cover. There we go. Ooh, got. It could be clogged up in here, in this hose. Oh, we're getting gas out of there. Alright, so it's not that. It must be the float. Float is stuck, valve is stuck. Alright, so we will take this apart over on the workbench, see what we see. It's good to get an eye on the inside of it anyway. Alright, got that loose crud out of there. I blew through some of the passages. They seem to be open. So we're going to put it back together. It's not that hard to get off if we have to. So we're going to put it back together and give her a try. So, float valve goes back in. Other way. Gauge pin goes back in. Get her lined up. Okay. We might as well test it while we have it out. So if I can blow through that when it's like that, it's leaking. And I can't. Well, I still can't. So it must be hanging up in there. So let's take a look at that. Some of the float valves and floats have a little wire that hooks around this, and I think this one is missing it because it has the neck for it. So you would have a wire that hooked around here, and when it dropped, it would literally pull the valve. Doesn't look corroded or anything, so I think we're missing that clip, that little wire clip. And I would have to go see if I have another different carburetor laying around that might have that little clip in it. So let me go dig. Found this one. It's an old Marvel Schiebler side draft carburetor. Let's see what's inside of it. I picked this one up at a flea market years ago. And it is missing the float. There is the valve. It's the kind that doesn't use a wire clip. So that's not going to help us any. I'll have to look around again. Have the other engine, but it was a good running engine, so I am hesitant to take any parts off of it. May just have to make a clip. All right, I found an old Bendix. This is real similar in design. Let's see what's inside of it. We might get lucky. And it has a float in it. And it has a spring looking attachment that's rusty. So let's pull that pin and see what we, excuse me, see what we see there. maybe. And that spring thing is falling apart as we pull it out. We pull the pin out, so that's probably not going to do us any good. It's got some rust on it. Matter of fact, because that's a steel pin, not a brass pin. There we go. Now let's keep the parts separate. So, pretty much identical float. There is the attachment that used to pull this one down. So this one's made the same. It doesn't have the neoprene seat. It has an actual metal seat. But yeah, the clip would hook here, and when the float would drop, it would pull this. So it looks like we're gonna have to make one. All right. Find us some fine wire. All right, I looked around a little bit more, and I remembered there was an old carburetor kit out in the camper, what was left over, and it was for a Ford 2-barrel carburetor that I think was on the old 69 Ford pickup that belonged to my son years ago. So I went out there looking, and this is what I found. So this is not exactly what we need, but this is similar in shape. So that locks on here, even though it's a little loose, I can fix it. And then that fits down in there. And this wire bends over this part. Actually, it goes this way, sorry. And this wire bends over this part of the float. And when the float drops, it pulls that. So I can make it out of this piece of wire. That's what I need to do. So first off, I need to close that up a little bit so that it actually, it's not tight on there because it'll bind up if it is, but it can't come off either, so it snaps on. So you snap it on, and then it needs to be loose, but it can't fall out. So that will work there. Now we need this to fit in here. Okay, so that needs to bend just right after it straightens out here. It needs to bend straight up. So let's take that back off. And we need to get some different pliers. So we want to protect this part here, but we want that to bend up. And there needs to be enough room in there where it goes over that part on the float so that it doesn't bind there either. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze here in just a second, most likely. It needs to not bind up there because as the float pivots on its pin, it gets further away from this piece. So there needs to be enough room. These pliers, I just found these down in the basement. I don't know what they got left down there, and so they're a little stiff, is why I'm struggling with them. So they do not want to open like I want them to open. Okay, so that is not quite 90. Let's see if we can get it a little further. It's also a little off, but that's this way, but that's not too bad. so now it needs to wrap back around the float. See, that goes in first. That goes in there. I have to snip some of it off so that I can see what I need to do. And we can use that one to make another one, so we need to hang on to that. All right, so that goes in there. It's going to sit right about there. So it needs maybe 1/8 of an inch. It needs maybe 1/8 of an inch right here. And then it needs to bend straight back the other way. Actually, this needs straightened out right here. So let's do that first. Because there needs to be a long enough tail on it that it gets trapped between the two spots, these two ears, so that it can't turn around and disengage. Okay, so now we need to put that right about there. This needs to bend straight over. Somewhat straight over. Yeah, that's not the exact shape I need, but I'm getting close. Come here. Okay, so roughly that is the shape we need. That might work. Let's see. So that fits down in there. Your float slides in to it. That might work. That little tail is not as long as I've seen them in the past. But I don't think, because it hits over here and then it rotates the other way, it hits over there, I don't think it can come out. So can't blow through it. Now I can blow through it. Can't blow through it. Now I can blow through it. Now the only thing is, it needs to be sitting in here and do that test, because if this doesn't drop far enough, it won't pull. And I can already see it looks like there's too much gap in there. So I think we need to fix that. It needs to be less. That little, I said it was going to be about 1/8 of an inch, and it wasn't. That needs to be less. This gap in here, there's too much gap right there, right to there. That needs to be shorter. So let's see if I can do that. So we need to straighten this back out. Okay, that is more straight. Now we need to make that a lot smaller. A radius would even work if we can get it to go around something. So let's try this. Tell you what, let's just bend it over the top of these pliers. Yeah, why not? Let's just do that. I'll figure it out one of these days, let me tell you. All right, so we need an improvised hammer right here. That is definitely a lot smaller gap. Yes, I like that better. Let's try it again. Okay, this fits in here. One more time. Okay. this way. Let's install it. Okay, let's install it. Oh, come on. Let's install it. Let it hang down in there. We'll put our pin in. Okay. Okay, that definitely opens it. I don't know if you can see that. Definitely opens it, but we got to check about, like I said, the travel on the float is one of the things that determines. Where are we at? What are we hanging on? It's not the wire. The wire's not binding this up. Almost looks like these float arms are bent. But yet it was together. You watched me pull it apart. I think these have been bent wrong. That would also cause it to not have any fuel. Because even if the float's dropped, what appears to be dropped, it's in the bottom, but they're bent, then that would keep the float valve shut all the time. Yeah, so I think those were bent wrong. There is a height adjustment. If you ever get a carburetor rebuild kit, the old ones had actual little scales, and you'd put them off of here and measure them and everything. But I think that one was bent just a little bit too much. Okay, now it actually drops, and there's going to be that gasket in there, so that'll change it just a little bit. So let's try that. Okay, so can't blow through it. Still can't blow through it. So what's going on? What are we doing here? Okay, so what's going on? It was working before. There we go. Maybe when I bent it down, it just kind of stuck it up in the seat. Let's try again. No. All right, what is going on? So I guess we still have too much bend on them. Let's go a little bit more. Right now, I just need to be able to get gas in the carburetor to see if the engine's going to run, and maybe do some preliminary adjustments on the carburetor. Okay, I got a little bit of air through it. Now I got full air through it. A little bit, so it's still pushing. Okay, so they are still pushing. Yeah, they were hitting the bottom. Okay, I'm getting just a tiny amount. Full amount. Okay, so we definitely need to adjust it some more. Let's see. Let's put this in here to get some extra room. that don't look right. That looks a little too much on this side. All right, let's try that. Blow through it easily. Yeah, it's still hard to blow through when it's in there. So, I mean, it looks almost flat. Go just a little bit more. All right, let's try it again. Okay, that's quite a bit better. Not as good as it being way down like that. But I think that's probably good enough to try it. All right. We will put her back together now. I'll take her apart to put her back together. Okay, so gasket goes on. Is that upside down? Yes, that is upside down. There we go. All right, then float and float valve go in. All right. Come on. Get in there. There we go. Put this back on. All right, what is hanging me up? Oh, it's that pin. Oh, did she come out? There we go. There we go. Okay, now, what are we hanging on? I think it's that Venturi in there. Get kind of hung up. All right. Put the screws back in. Might get this thing running tonight after all. But I have to be at work bright and early in the morning, which is awesome. And we have a big project we have to hit hard and get it going. So probably as soon as we get this running, or fail horribly trying, I'm going to call it a day and put everything back in the garage. Grab some dinner and relax a little bit before I have to go back. This is a Zenith carburetor. That other one I had outside is a Bendix. Well, Zenith a lot of times was the original equipment on the engines and tractors and stuff, or an old Marvel Schiebler or something like that. And then it seems like Bendix was the replacements. All right, we were going to put a washer on that. So, all right, time to head outside. See what we can do. All right, carburetor is back on, everything's together. Camera is connected to the power, so maybe we can get through this without the battery dying on it again. Choke. Key is on. Here we go. Ooh, smoky, smoky. Off. I don't think I have any starting fluid. I could go look and see though. Smells like she's trying to. Ooh, that's getting better. Come on, baby. Even better. Come on. You can do it. Come on. And the carburetor may be totally out of adjustment. Something where I might have to hook the electric motor back up to it. Okay, so let's see. It's 1.5. Let's try that. Come on, babe. Didn't get a good pull on that one, it popped loose. She's a runner. That's more than she's ran in years. Come on, you can do it. One more time. Slipping, my rope slips off and I don't get a full pull. First time it's ran maybe 10 years. I'm just gonna let it run. It's not right, but I'm just gonna let it run as long as it wants to get the rings and everything good and warm. The governor linkage right there is loose. It's not right. The throttle's not responding, but I don't care. That is great. If I had a way to sit on it without sitting on the tires, I'd check out the rear axle and everything. See if I can figure that out.